is pretty clunky when it comes to making streams work. I think it's, since I've had this thing, it's worked maybe 2 or 3 times the way I thought it was supposed to. So we're going to hang out for a minute and wait for people to start showing up, and then we'll get started, because it's just a little bit after 4. Just letting people know to come to the new stream here.
Yeah, I lost that previous chat. Can't get back to it.
Yeah. This is the problem with these kind of new fangled technologies. We try to do stuff on a schedule, and it's hard because the program that I'm using is a little clunky and doesn't work the way I expect it to. But it seems like it's working now, and YouTube is telling me that there's a few people watching. So welcome. 20 people watching already. So let me close what I'm working on here, and we'll go to the program now. So thanks for joining us. We're live, shelter in place. I'm John, as you know, and today we have our top secret producer sitting behind me, and we're doing something different today. I put her on the picture for you guys. You want to talk a little and see if people can hear you?
Testing, 1, 2, 3.
Right. So the way this is working, I have everything going through this microphone, and it's directional, and it's sort of sensitive to whatever's pretty close to it. So there's another way that I can run this, and as a matter of fact, why don't we test that real quick, and you guys can tell her which one works better. Does that make sense? So I'm going to tell the computer to turn on that one when she's on screen. Test now.
Hi, everybody. It's me, Top Secret. Not so top secret.
Yeah, not so top secret anymore. So
it's a new name, Not So Top Secret.
Right. So the question then is, does it sound funny having both microphones on? Or does it sound better having only the one microphone on like this? So let her know, and I'll make whatever adjustments we need to make to the settings.
Aaron says to pull the mic a little closer if you want to be heard.
To me or to her?
To me.
Oh, well, we can't because it's on a phone.
Yeah.
So I can turn up the gain a little bit, but the question is whether or not we're getting a weird echo, because the two...
There's a bit of an echo, they said.
Okay, so I think I prefer not to have an echo.
Second mic is great, but the echo is present, Brandon says.
Okay. I think we'll just use this one then, and I know how to make it work. This is the funny thing. I know how to make it work with a second microphone, but that involves having another mixer in here, which just complicates things even more. So we'll just use it with this microphone this time. I will try to remember, if she's talking and it's a question, I'll try to remember to repeat the question that was being asked, so that it's not a mystery.
I can always talk like this. I don't know if anyone can hear me though.
They can hear you, but it probably sounds like you're yelling from across the room, which she is. Yeah. So anyway, let's get started. I have some stuff that I want to talk to you guys about. And
I'm on the screen this whole time.
Oh, she's on the screen this whole time. I'm glad somebody was paying attention. This is the problem with trying to be the host and also trying to be the director and the producer and everything else all at once. There's the tech guy, the internet guy, the YouTube guy. There's too much crap going on. So
I'm still.
No, you're not anymore. I'm looking at the screen here. So you had something nicer to look at for a minute there instead of me. So as I was saying, I have a few things that I want to talk about. And then since everybody seemed to have such a great time last time in our final hour, we went for, was it 3 hours? We went for over 3 hours last time. And I said this last time, I'm going to say it again. And, who knows what will happen because we always end up going longer than I think. But I'm going to say right now, I don't think we'll go for 3 hours this time because I'm not showing you a train collection. It's just going to be the items that I have on my list of stuff. And then at the end, we'll just kind of hang out and it gives everybody a place to kind of sit around and chat and BS and talk. And I'm suggesting that because last time it seemed like people really enjoyed that socializing part toward the end. So I figured we'd intentionally do that this time instead of just having it happen by accident. So the first thing I want to talk about is this. I got this article from the San Francisco Chronicle, which talks about Caltrain being in a lot of trouble right now, financially. And so basically what they're talking about is Caltrain is our commute service here in the Bay Area, the main one that runs between San Francisco and, well, it actually goes all the way down to Gilroy, but the main thrust of their service is between San Francisco and San Jose. And I'm pretty familiar with Caltrain because I've ridden it, and the very first DVD that I produced here at TSG Multimedia that was train related was all about Caltrain. So, and I know people at Caltrain, and so there's a connection there for me. And so this article really alarmed me. And basically what it says is that due to the virus, there's not a lot of riders right now. And the San Francisco County Board of Supervisors had a meeting recently where they were supposed to bring up a proposed very small tax. I think it's an 1/8% sales tax that would go, or that would generate $100 million for Caltrain for operating costs. And it's a big deal because Caltrain, unlike a lot of commute services in the country, they've never had a permanent, consistent funding source, and they rely heavily on the fare box. And since no one's having to go to work right now, and since it's a little bit hazardous to be stuck in enclosed places like a rail coach, people aren't taking Caltrain to go anywhere. So they're hurting. And so what ended up happening is there are two of the people on the board of supervisors for San Francisco County that their names are Aaron Peskin and Shimon Walton. And they have an issue with Caltrain. I'll just put it that way. And so their voices were needed to bring the 1/8 of a cent sales tax up for, to put it onto the agenda to talk about it before it could be brought up for a vote. And they didn't allow it to happen. So the article is basically saying that if that doesn't happen, and if that sales tax doesn't get brought up to a vote, that Caltrain will lose that $100 million, which is a lot of money. So I got on the phone with some people that I know who are probably more familiar with the situation, and I'm just giving you my understanding of it. and that's really distracting. So anyway, the idea that I had was to put this out there and suggest that if you live in San Francisco, you want to contact your supervisor, be it your city supervisor and the county supervisor that represents your district and the mayor's office, and tell them that they all need to vote on this funding, because if Caltrain doesn't get the funding, they're going to have to make some very difficult decisions regarding service and staffing and everything else. And to be quite frank, Caltrain carries tens of thousands of commuters between, up and down the peninsula every week. And our highways in this area, under normal conditions, are so jam-packed with bumper-to-bumper traffic, especially during what most people would refer to as rush hour, that our roads can't handle another 60,000 people driving to work when they could be taking the train. So there's a bit of an urgency to this. And if you don't live in the area but are interested in helping, you could also call the mayor of San Francisco's office and put some pressure on them. So I think that, at least I heard from the person I was talking to about this, that there's another supervisor whose name escapes me at the moment who's likely to push this and bring it to the vote by applying his own pressure, but I thought that some public pressure wouldn't hurt either. So that's one thing I thought was really important as a transit advocate and someone that cares about what happens to Caltrain. Really more for the transportation infrastructure aspect of it than anything else. Because, I don't rail fan Caltrain very often. It's just a very critical piece of our transportation infrastructure here in the Bay Area. So I thought that was pretty important to bring up. So if you can help, call the mayor's office. It should be very easy to find the number. Just search on Google or whatever, San Francisco mayor's office or something like that. And if you want to call the county supervisors, the ones that, like I said, that are most responsible here are Peskin and Shaman. And putting some pressure on them wouldn't hurt either. The only thing is, generally, when you call a supervisor's office, one of the first things that they will ask you is, what's your address? And if you're not a constituent, your call won't even get registered. So that's why I was suggesting the mayor, because they take all calls. So,
You can advocate for passenger rail wherever they live.
yeah, she's saying, sorry, let's do this. What did you say?
You can advocate for passenger rail wherever you live.
You can advocate for passenger rail wherever you live. It's important, she says. I don't know if you heard that. If you didn't, I'm the interpreter doing the sign language, yeah. So anyway, let us know if Sydney needs to speak up more. And like I said, I'll probably address this on our next show with an audio mixer, which is really what I should have done this time, but I've got so much stuff going on here that it gets pretty complicated.
We're already testing.
And the other thing was we were already testing, so this is our test run. And if we need to add a microphone, we'll do so next time. So I have my notes posted up here. I'll show you on the camera. I have some notes posted up here, just a little bit off camera. And the next one is, I can't even read this. Oh, I see what it says. I made some, oh, right. So, on the channel here, we have Teespring, which is little branded merchandise like this fabulous shirt that our top secret producer's wearing that has the logo there. You see that? Right? And on the back it says TSG Train Crew. Well, TSG Train Crew shirts are only available for Patreon members, but that's not what I'm going to talk about, because as tired of hearing about Patreon as people who watch this channel probably are, I'm equally tired of talking about it, believe it or not. So what I was going to say is, on Teespring, they finally came out with cloth masks. So they finally came out with cloth masks. And so I created some Chasing Trains cloth masks. And if you look in the chat window, I'm pretty sure that our top secret producer can add the link so you can take a look at these cloth masks. So if you're going by the recommendations of your health department and want cloth masks, you can rep to the world that you're one of the best viewers on YouTube by having a Chasing Trains cloth mask. Or if you're just going out chasing trains and you know the guys that you normally go out with, maybe they smell a little bit, or, you know, right? You can put on your mask and it'll mitigate the stench from your friends. I can think of a few guys that I need that for when we go out chasing trains. Actually, I should hand them the mask to them so they don't have to smell me, more like. So anyway, I wanted to also use this program to talk about some of the things that I've been doing over the month, because it seems like almost by accident the TSG Multimedia podcast that comes out on the first of every month has become a place for interviews for events that are happening, and things like steam engines being moved or starting service or being restored or that kind of thing. So what I've been doing over the past 3 weeks or so since the last podcast is talking to people on Skype or other video conference type platforms for interviews for the podcast. And one such interview was also done yesterday, but it wasn't specifically for the podcast. It was an interview with an author, Joshua Dyer, who, it's D-Y-E-R, who wrote a historic fiction book about the Transcon, where he describes basically from the Central Pacific side of things. He tells a story of what could have happened. And I say that because 80% of the book is rooted in factual history that is documented, and then the storyline and the characters are more a creation of his imagination, or what they do is a creation of his imagination. And I thought, he contacted me probably about a month ago or something like that, and made me aware of the book and suggested that he would be interested in doing something like this. So what we did yesterday was we had a TSG train crew virtual hangout, which we've been doing these about once a month since, 2 or 3 months ago. So he was our guest, and we had a talk, and I kind of interviewed him, and the participants were able to ask questions. So it was really cool, and I think we had a lot of fun, and it made me think that I would like to interview him for the podcast, because at some point I'll probably make this virtual hangout available on YouTube for the general public. But before I do that, I'll want to introduce who he is, so that when the interview shows up as a standalone feature, you'll know, and it won't be like, well, who the heck is this guy? So kind of introducing him before the interview or before the hangout gets published. So in addition to that, I have seeing here Ryan Blake from the Western Railway Museum. He's on their board of directors there. And the Western Railway Museum is trying to save a PCC streetcar that was San Diego Electric number... Shoot, I forgot the number. I posted about this on the Facebook page, posting their GoFundMe page for this effort. And so I'm going to have him on the podcast. At least this is the plan right now. I'm supposed to be talking to him, I think it's a week from today or a week from yesterday, to get more information about that and how people can help if they want to help preserve that historic car. It's a neat piece of equipment, and they posted pictures of it on the Western Railway Museum's website, and it would be really cool if they can acquire it and restore it, and then we can all go ride it up there in Rio Vista. So I also have plans to talk to our local NMRA chapter president. Well, actually, he's not our local chapter president. He's our regional president. His name is Chris Palermo, and I've known him for a little while now, and we're going to talk about the NMRA National Convention that's supposed to be taking place here in my area next year, about a year from now. And so that should be a really cool interview. Like I said, I've known Chris for a while. I met him for the first time, I think in January, face-to-face. I think it was January. And he's a super cool guy, and I think that he can talk more eloquently about the convention than I can. So we decided to have a little powwow with him. So that should also be coming out on the TSG podcast for August. And also, you may recall I was talking to a guy named Alan Sigworth, not on this most recent podcast, but the one prior to that, about a 260 coming to Niles Canyon. And it's the former Southern Pacific 1744. And so our plan when I talked to him, and we mentioned it in the short interview that we did on the podcast that day, was to have him and Jeff Schwab, who's also an integral part of their steam department over at the Pacific Locomotive Association, Niles Canyon Railway, and to have their other cohort, Charlie, who's also an integral part there. And I know Charlie's last name, and it's just escaping me. I hate, getting old really sucks. You just can't, you don't have the recall that you used to have. Charlie, well, you'll find out on the interview. So we're going to be talking to them sometime this week on Skype or one of these video conference call things. So it should be a pretty interview full podcast that's coming out in a week or two now. I thought I heard someone taking a breath back here. Were you trying to say something? Oh, you weren't? Okay. So I was talking, we had another stream started here, or I thought it was started before this one was active, and we were kind of chatting in the chat window, and I was asking people, one second. I was asking people if they thought it was necessary for me to mention this, and I didn't get enough feedback, at least I don't think I did. So I want to mention that one of the things I've noticed when I look through the YouTube analytics on the channel is that the number of likes compared to the number of views isn't really high. It's actually not that good, to be honest. And I don't think it's because people don't like the videos, because they keep coming back to watch them. But there's this thing that's kind of a hang up for me. I don't want to be the guy that's on the camera always saying, don't forget to like and subscribe, don't forget to like and subscribe, don't forget to like and subscribe, and ring the bell. I hate doing that. So I thought I'd mention it on here, just a reminder that if you do like the content, always remember to hit that thumbs up, because it does help. YouTube keeps track of that stuff, and it will recommend videos on the side of your screen there. If you're watching on a computer, it'll recommend videos based on that kind of feedback from the viewers. So if you do like the channel and you want to help it grow and help it be as popular as possible, hitting the like button definitely helps. So I just wanted to mention that. So I wanted to talk about something that I've avoided talking about for the past 2.5 years, but it was brought to my attention by a viewer who was posting actually pretty rude comments on one of the recent videos that our old friend Dan made a video in which basically he was trying to besmirch my character, and by telling a very one-sided accounting of what happened, when he quit back in January of 2018. And normally it's not my style to create public drama, because that's not what I'm about. I really just want to continue making good videos and having people enjoy them and bringing stuff to the world that you might not otherwise see. But I'm not going to let his half story stand. without some correction and some context, because it's really not fair. It's not fair to the viewers who would only have one side of it, and it's really unfair to me because the way he tells the story paints me to be some kind of terrible villain, and it simply isn't true. So I've made notes about this because the way I describe stuff, in case you haven't noticed, I get sidetracked. And if it's a complex issue, it's so easy to get sidetracked and bring up probably 100 other things that maybe aren't as relevant as they might feel to me when I'm trying to describe it. So I'm going to read off of my notes here. So the real facts of the matter are that he was always pretty difficult to work with. So that was always an issue, but I made concessions to that because of our friendship. You know, I'm not going to, okay, stick to the notes. So as time went by, he started doing less and less work. And the work that he was doing was getting progressively worse quality-wise. So at some point, okay, I'm going off my notes. He was always late. He was chronically negative and unwilling to try different things. And I mean, the real question that I have is, what would you do if you were trying to work with someone like that? His actions really put me in a difficult position where the only outcome that could take place really was to end the working relationship. And it had nothing to do, you know, it wasn't about financials. It was really solely about work ethic and commitment and professionalism. And I couldn't do what I was doing anymore and, you know, just give him a free ride because I was trying to be a friend to him. So that's really what happened. And, you know, it sucks because in the process, he hasn't talked to me, and we were friends for, 30 years. But he's doing something that he seems to like doing, and I haven't been happier, to be honest, in the past 15 years. So I'm doing what I like to do and seeing a lot of things and meeting a lot of people that I would have probably not had a chance to meet otherwise. So I think in the end, things turned out for the better. And, I hope he's happy doing whatever he does. But to present a one-sided story where he had no culpability at all, it's typical Dan. And that's all I'm going to say about that. So anyway, let's go to the next thing I wanted to mention, which is on the podcast, I started a new sort of feature, I guess you could call it, where I'm asking people that if they have any really cool catches that, pictures of trains that they took, that they can send it in to podcast@tsgmultimedia.com, and I'll be glad to post it to the podcast. As I'm calling it the catch of the month right now. I don't know. The thing is that there's more than one catch of the month. Like, for example, I received some really great photos from a friend, Al Hovey, in New Mexico, who Al Hovey runs a youth and model railroading type of I want to say it's an organization down in Albuquerque where he has a bunch of young people and they do mentorship and introduce kids to model railroading. It's a really great thing. Well, one of the people who goes there, one of the kids named Chris, takes really, really good pictures. And you can see some of his pictures in the last podcast that came out a couple weeks ago. And Al has already sent me more pictures from Chris. So I'd love to have you, if you have good pictures, to share yours as well. So podcast@tsgmultimedia.com is the best email address to send those. All I ask is that send your own pictures, okay? Don't send a picture by somebody else. I mean, I made an exception for Al because I know him and I know that he had permission because it was an official email that he put out for his organization. So if you take pictures, send your own pictures. I don't want to be the guy posting someone else's pictures because somebody lied to me. So, so don't send anything that you don't own. And anyway, are there any questions yet coming in? This is, okay, so I want to mention that this is also serving as a Q&A because, like I said, I don't have a bunch of stuff to show you today. I haven't been working on the models because I've been doing other stuff. But some of the TSG train crew members know some of the other stuff that I've been doing because I shared a little secret on the live Hangout that we did yesterday. And so actually the little secret has something to do with this camera right here. Right? It's this is the camera, Brandon, that you were watching yesterday. That's the one. I was using it today in order to test it with this stuff to see if it was going to work okay, and it seems like it's working pretty well. Something else I want to mention is I went on Instagram. So something you might not know is our top secret producer right there is also our top secret Instagram person. So even though it says TSG Multimedia, that's who you're talking to, right? But this past week, well, let me back up for a second. TSG train crew member Jamie West, who's been on many Chasing Trains episodes, has been after me for a while now to do a live Q&A on Instagram. Well, I don't know anything about Instagram because she's been doing all the Instagram stuff. So finally, this past week, I think it was on Tuesday, I downloaded Instagram for my phone and installed it. And Jamie and I went live for, I don't know, 5 or 10 minutes to announce what I'm about to tell you, which is that we're going to do the first ever official live video Instagram Q&A session. So I'm going to set up a call or a video conference, I guess that's what it is, and then invite Jamie to be on it. And so Jamie and I will be hanging out with all the Instagram viewers. So I know that some of you that watch the channel here are Instagram viewers. So make sure you join us. It's Tuesday at 6 p.m. Pacific time. So it should be a lot of fun. So if you have any other comments or questions that you want me to address, please do so in the chat, the text chat here, because I just finished all my notes. And yeah.
This Tuesday at 6 p.m. you said?
Yeah, this Tuesday at 6 p.m. Pacific time on the TSG Multimedia Instagram channel. So should be good. Something I'm going to mention real quick though, speaking of Instagram, my friend Walker Embry is called Boxcar Tourist on Instagram. And he is an N-scaler who does really amazing work. And he's really prolific. He built an entire layout, which is actually a very well done layout, in about a year and a half. And he did a layout tour of this layout on the NMRAx series, the first one that they did whenever that was, last month sometime. I think it was last month. Actually, it might have been a month and a half ago. But my point is, it was the first one that they did when they did the NMRAx sessions. And if you don't know what that is, NMRAx is an online presence that the NMRA has developed in order to sort of counteract the problem with the virus. Because as you may know, the virus shut down the entire NMRA National Convention that was supposed to take place in St. Louis a couple weeks ago, or last week. And so rather than just not having anything, some guys, really namely the main guy I think that had the idea or that organized this was Gordy Robinson, which is a guy in Scotland. And I met him at the NMRA National Convention last year in Salt Lake City. Super cool guy. And so he basically picked up the ball and ran with it. And they've been doing, it seems like every other week, they're doing like 10 or 12 hours of streaming of clinics and layout tours and, you know, discussion panels and stuff like that. So you can find out more about that by searching on Facebook for NMRAx. I think if you just search for NMRA, you'll find links to it also.
Some people are confused. I think NMRAx was just that first one in April.
Oh, no, NMRAx is a continued thing, and they're putting it all up on YouTube as well. So yes, it started in April. That was the first one.
Many sessions.
Yeah, they've had a bunch of sessions already, and they're going to have even more. As a matter of fact, I was in the process of developing a clinic. They asked me to do a clinic. So they asked me to do a clinic about layout tours because I know something about doing layout tours. You might have noticed that I have some layout tours on the channel here. So I haven't got around to really developing that yet, but I will. And when I do, I'll probably present it on NMRAx. But I was talking about Walker. So I want to give him a shout out because one of the projects that I have on deck right now, and I was waiting for some equipment to arrive that I alluded to a minute ago when I was saying that's the camera I was showing you, Brandon. And that I mentioned I was going to do this, I think, on the last live thing. You can hear sirens on the... Can you hear the sirens? There's some fire truck going by outside somewhere. But anyway, I mentioned I was going to do some weathering and fixing up of some of these old Lifelike cars, but I was waiting for the equipment that I alluded to show up before I started. And it'll all be clear why I waited when it comes out. But I wanted to mention Walker because one of the things that I'm going to be doing to these crappy old cars, these are really low-end Lifelike N-scale cars, and they have these Arnold Rapido couplers. You've seen those before? Normally, we'd like to use a knuckle coupler like this, or something similar to this. I'm trying to make sure it's in focus by putting it behind my face. But these old Lifelike cars came with the Arnold Rapidos. So what I'm going to do on the upcoming show is show you how to replace the trucks so that they have the knuckle couplers instead of these Arnold Rapido couplers. And Walker, that's Boxcar Tourist on Instagram, see, I'm going to bring this all back around now, was nice enough to send me a bunch of knuckle coupler trucks. So I'll be replacing the trucks that are on these old cars with the ones that Walker sent. So I wanted to thank you, Walker, if you watch, and let you all know to check out his modeling on Instagram TV, also known as IGTV, right? Because he does some really great how-to stuff. And to be honest, when I weathered my first cars that I showed you last time in the N-scale show and tell thing, part of the reason why I did these was because I watched one of Walker's how-to videos on how to weather a boxcar, and I got inspired by it. You know, it's N-scale, so it's relevant. He did something that was gray, more like the hopper that I did. His was a boxcar, the one that I watched. But it just seemed so easy, you know? And I know that it's easy. It was just, you know, they say that the hardest part of any project is getting started. And I just never found the motivation to get started until I watched Walker's video. So I watched that. I did my weathering. I had a lot of fun doing the weathering. And that's when I decided that I would do some weathering shows for the channel here. And now that all the pieces are in place, I can do it. So I'll be probably working on those videos here over the next, I don't know, few weeks. And they'll probably come out sometime in the next couple months or so.
There was a quick question about the picks you were asking for Catch of the Month.
Oh, let me put you on screen so people can read your lips. What is it?
Just the question was, were you wanting real trains or model picks?
Oh.
Models?
Well, so far the catch of the month pictures that I've had were prototyped real trains. So, but I'll take pictures of models if you want to send them. I mean, why not? Just if you're going to do a model picture, though, make sure it's very well lit, because if it's dark and doesn't look, that good, it's hard to use. So, if you need tips on lighting, there was a video that we did that was a shelter-in-place video like this, where I went over video tips for taking videos of trains. You can apply the same things to your photographs too. I think I talked about lighting in that. I don't remember. That's another video that I have in the works, is a Video 101 class that's about basically making videos of trains. And I'm going to cover prototype trains, and I think I'm also going to cover model trains in that. It depends. I have the whole thing scripted, but when you add in the examples that I'm going to add in, it might end up being long enough to where I want to split those up into 2 parts. So, but that's something that, again, will come out eventually. I have a lot of ideas for projects, but I can only do so much at one time, and I'm not going to get bogged down with having 100 half-started projects, that I'll pull out of a box 20 years later and wonder what it is. That's just not my way of doing things. So, it sounded like you...
videos are just on, are they on YouTube or just on Instagram?
Walker's videos are only on IGTV. I was talking to him and suggesting that if he wanted to, I would put them on my channel, because I think that could get him some great exposure.
What's his handle and what's he known by on Instagram?
Yeah, on Instagram he is Boxcar Tourist. Boxcar Tourist, yeah. And like I said, he's a really great guy. He I think is from the Midwest, but he and his girlfriend moved to Oregon about a year and a half ago, or somewhere like that, maybe a year and a half ago. And I got to know him a little bit better after he moved, but originally was introduced to him, I think, on Patterson's show. So anyway, so there's that.
Sparky had a question.
Oh, Sparky had a question. What's Sparky's question?
Sparky wanted to know what was your favorite playlist or channel on YouTube?
My favorite playlist on my channel, or just...
Video on, probably, no, not your channel, but what do you watch?
What do I watch on YouTube?
I'm guessing for Sparky, so.
Yeah, well, my favorite other channel on YouTube is probably Sparky 107. There you go, pal. That's probably what you really wanted. To be honest, I don't really watch anything other than Sparky 107 because he does a live thing every Wednesday at 4 my time, which I'm either right on time for it or I'm late, like at the end of the thing. And I don't know what happens. I'm doing something here, or I'm editing, or there's some other video meeting that I was participating in. So I show up and it's like, oh, it's already over, So, it's really a weird thing to be isolated because of the virus, but be busier than ever and interacting more than ever with people online, through video conferences. It's really strange when you think about it, because when the virus wasn't affecting us, I was out doing stuff all the time, chasing trains, layout tours, meeting people, whatever. And I thought I was really busy. But I found that being sheltered in place with all these video conferences is even busier. So I'm looking forward to getting back to our other normal, just so that I can rest a little bit and go out and do things. Do you know what I mean?
What was your favorite on your channel?
On my channel, my favorite playlist. Well, it's hard to pick one, because I'm probably most proud of the annual Steam specials, because those are projects that were either collaborations with Mike Armstrong or projects that I collaborated with. One of them was with Mike Ninneman, and the last couple were projects that I did on my own. And I think that my favorite one was the one about Nevada Northern that came out at the end of 2017. I mean, that one I thought was so good that I wanted to enter it into film festivals. So I really like that playlist a lot. I never get to watch it, but I'm actually very proud of the videos that are on it. I really like the layout tours a lot because everyone that is on the layout tours has become a friend that I like a lot and respect a lot. I really like the Model Railroading with Jack Burgess series because that guy is such a wealth of information and legitimate information. I mean, he knows everything that he talks about and has a lot of experience with all that stuff. And so I think that that's also really helpful for people that are interested in the hobby. I really like the Chasing Trains videos because, I mean, let's face it, those are it's almost like family videos, the Chasing Trains series, because it's a documentation of some really great times that I've had with friends. And I mean, especially the past 10 or 12 episodes, and also the early episodes, there are some really hilarious. One of the things I've been thinking about doing is going back through the Chasing Trains playlist and collecting all the really funniest parts of Chasing Trains and turning those into little compilations that can be sort of standalone videos, you know, the best of Chasing Trains. I'm also partial to there's a playlist. I'm going to open it up real quick.
Is Mike Armstrong Coaster Fan 2105?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, Mike Armstrong is Coaster Fan 2105. I've known Mike for, my goodness, probably 15 years or 10 or 15 years now, because back when we were doing videos that were DVDs, he contacted me as a kid. I mean, he wasn't even 18 yet. I think he was 16 or something, and wanted to help make a video like the Caltrain video that I talked about earlier, and like the Ace Stockton to San Jose video. He wanted to help make one video like that, but about Coaster, which is the San Diego commute, because he's a Coaster fan. And so after corresponding with him via email and giving him some pointers and some tips about using the camera in a way that would make it more suitable for a pro level DVD like that, he listened to all the advice that I gave him and started producing stuff that was suitable. And he shot the entire Coaster San Diego to Oceanside video. He shot every shot in that video. Now, there are some still photos that I acquired from other friends, and some of the still photos also Mike took. But I mean, that video was as much that's like Coaster Fan 2105's first professional video, I would say. And boy, he did a really, really great job. And you probably know his channel, Coaster Fan 2105, otherwise people wouldn't have asked. But what he has done with his channel is just mind-boggling. He's getting close to 600,000 subscribers on YouTube, and I can only imagine, you know, what his revenue income is from YouTube. It's got to be pretty astronomical with that size of a channel. And really, what I think happened with Mike, and I don't know, I don't talk to him very often nowadays, but I think what happened was people with kids got hooked onto it. Kids who like trains. Because I remember having a conversation with Mike years ago when his channel was really starting to take off, and I was trying to compare notes, because the demographics on this channel are something like 90% male and 10% female, or very similar, just distribution like that. His at the time was about half and half. So I was thinking to myself, why in the world would women be watching this? And then it hit me, it's moms with kids. And when mom has to do some vacuuming, assuming she's at home, you know, watching the kids, she could put on Coaster Fan 2105 and let the kids watch the TV while she gets her work done around the house. You know what I'm saying? That sounds like a very sexist thing, and I'm not saying that to say that only women stay home and take care of kids. I'm just saying it as what I think happened there. And it was a real stroke of genius what he was able to do. And he started doing the toy train videos. Those are those wooden Brio type trains of Thomas and stuff. Kids love that stuff. So, I mean, my hat goes off to Mike. He's done some really amazing things with his YouTube channel. And I'm really proud, to be honest, proud of him for what he was able to do. So I'm looking at the playlists now, and to tell you guys which ones are my favorites. I really think I covered the ones that are my most favorite ones. I also like the Crew Lounge episodes, because those were the live things that this program has kind of replaced because we can't get together safely right now. The Crew Lounge were the live panel discussions that we did down at the Santa Clara Depot. I had a really great time doing those and got to meet some people doing that too. And I consider everybody that's been on those shows to be friends and people that I like a lot. So watching those, that's the other thing. If I go onto my channel to take care of some business, looking at analytics or something like that, and a video starts playing, depending what it is, sometimes I'll just end up watching the video. And it's not, because when you edit these things, it's different than if you're just viewing it. And what I mean by that is when you do go into the editing process, it takes a long time, and you are totally immersed underwater in this thing. And I have to watch the video when I'm editing it, and I have to watch it when it's done to make sure that it works. So to not have seen it since I edited it, and then to pick it up almost sort of by accident a few months later, it's almost like I've had enough time by then to get outside myself and see it from a different perspective. So I do get sucked in, as self-absorbed as it probably sounds. I get sucked into my own videos and end up watching them. Now, it's not because I'm watching me, though, so I guess it's not self-absorbed that way. Like if I see Jack Burgess come on, or a layout tour, I'm just like, oh, this is cool. I think I'm going to watch this. And at the end of it, and I've talked about this before, I used to be a house painter a long time ago. And there's nothing better than finishing a job and then standing back at the curb and looking at how good it looks. And there's that same kind of satisfaction in seeing a video that I finished. And I mean, the Nevada Northern one, Steam Special from 2017, I think is the one that gives me the most satisfaction, because I know how much work and how much effort that took to do. And it was also just a great trip that we took with Gary and Mike, which turned into some Chasing Trains episodes too. So I don't know. It's kind of an interesting question. I never really thought about it, Dave, to be honest, but thanks for asking, because it kind of makes things clearer for me about what I'm doing here. And really it sort of sheds light on the rewards that I feel from doing it and from being able to watch what I've done. So I think those are, yeah.
Nathan DeLay wanted to know if you like branch lines or main lines.
If I like branch lines or main lines? Well, the real answer, I think, is that I kind of like all lines. And it may sound like a cop-out, but branch lines are not as busy, so you kind of have to know what's going on there and when they run, or know someone who works for the railroad. But the nice thing about branch lines and short lines, as it were, or heritage railroads for that matter, is that if they know what you're doing and they understand how that can help them, like with PR, they're usually open to inviting you to get access for things that otherwise you wouldn't do. Like, I've been on more cab rides than I can think of off the top of my head. I've often thought that I should make a list of all the cab rides that I've had, just to have it, and be able to look back at it and say, oh, I've done some pretty cool stuff. So there is that aspect of short lines and heritage railroads, but there's nothing quite like seeing the latest and greatest technology in locomotives pulling a 2-mile long train and making all kinds of noise. That's pretty exciting. So I really like both. And do you know what I really like? And you can go, this video came out this month, the chase of the rail grinder. If you didn't see that came out a week ago yesterday. It's a LORAM RG400 rail grinder that my friend Kevin Hill, who works the Santa Cruz branch line for Progressive Rail currently, he called me up one day and says, there's a rail grinder sitting out at Watsonville Junction, and I think they're going to be going out tonight. And this was back in January. And I remember because it was podcast week that week, and I really didn't have time. But how often do you get to see a rail grinder? And furthermore, how often do you get to see a rail grinder at night? So it wasn't a hard decision. I was in the car probably within about 20 minutes and went down there. And, honestly, if he hadn't called me, I wouldn't have known about it. But the other half of that story is that if I didn't go, he wouldn't have gone to chase it either. So we really helped each other out that day, or that night, I should say, by going together. And that was a great time. Kevin, because he's been on Chasing Trains, and the guy is a character. I mean, anytime is a good excuse to hang out with Kevin, because you're going to be laughing the whole time. And we did. There was a lot of laughing. At some points that night, we were actually a little scared. And what I mean is, really? There was the thrill of the rail grinder and seeing all the sparks, and
being scared though.
The thrill of that was not a thrill to be scared. So part of that chase, and it's a shot in the video, is the rail grinder came through, and you can tell because the scene is lit. It's obviously at a platform at a station someplace. Well, it was 1 a.m. or so in Salinas at the Amtrak station. And Salinas is probably pretty safe during the day, but it's not known to be a really safe place, just in general. There's a fair amount of crime that takes place there. And we were there in the middle of the night. And I mean, there were people across the tracks that were tagging there was a cut of hoppers, I think it was, and you could hear the rattle cans. So there were some taggers. We could hear that. Weird people going by on skateboards in the middle of the night.
John Dyson asked if Kevin was like Alvin.
Kevin?
Sparky says there's only one Alvin.
Well, there is only one Alvin, and there's also only one Kevin. So I wouldn't draw a comparison. What I will say, what I will say though, is that when Alvin came out last January, and we spent the day with Kevin, it was just me and Kevin and Alvin, and that had to be one of the best days chasing trains. So, and that video also came out. It was part of Fabio Goes to California. So I don't know if you guys have watched all these things. They're definitely worth seeing, because especially the chasing trains. I realize when we do the chasing trains videos that you kind of have to know the people in the videos, and it's lucky because I've been able to get the same people to come on a number of times. And like I said before, everybody that comes on because they want to, and we all have a great time doing it. So it's not hard. if I want to do a Chasing Trains episode, there's a few people I can call and say, hey, do you want to go do a Chasing Trains thing? And it's not hard to be, when are we doing it? It's not hard to get that response because we all have such a great time. And actually, I intentionally try to get the same people to come back on. That way, someone who watches the channel but maybe doesn't get Chasing Trains, doesn't really understand it, gets to know the characters. Because the only character that's been on every single episode of Chasing Trains is me. And it's not really a self-indulgent thing as much as I'm there because I'm making the video, So, it's not, as much as I'm on it, though, it's not a video about me. I don't think any video that I make is a video about me. I like to tell people what I've been doing on the podcasts so that everybody knows what's going to happen and what kind of content is likely to show up on the channel, because I think that gives people an incentive to watch. And these live things, I think that these live things like what we're doing right here, right now, are about as self-indulgent as I get on these things, because I really tell you what I'm thinking. Now, I don't know how I got on that. How did I get on that?
Comparing Alvin and Kevin.
Oh, well, whatever. I love both of those guys. I don't have one favorite person. I have like 20 favorite people. And actually, they're usually the people on Chasing Trains, just because I don't know, we just happen to hang out more. I think that if I had my way, I would try to have the guys that I have always called the Donner Pass crew. That would be Frank and Marty and Mike, to be on more Chasing Trains. I would really like to have Trevor and Paul from Santa Cruz. Well, they're not from Santa Cruz, but that's where I always see them, at the Fern Creek in Western. I would really like to have them on more often, but they're busy, Trevor's always working at Roaring Camp, or else he's up in Oregon at school, and Paul does theater work. I suppose. Well, but Paul doesn't drive, though, so I don't think, or maybe he does now, but I suppose I could call him, but it would have to be for something that's happening out in Santa Cruz or that part of the area, just so that I could go pick him up or something. Because like I said, I don't think he drives, and it's not easy to get from where he lives to this part of where I live. So, yeah.
Super quick question, but then I have two more in-depth questions.
Okay.
Try to be succinct in answering this. Nathan wants to know, have you ever met an owner of a railroad? He got to meet an owner of Reading and Northern. I guess that's how you pronounce it.
It's actually Reading, but
Reading,
yeah.
Okay. And he turned out to be an awesome guy, and
Uh-huh.
we got to see some stuff. So we just want to know if you've ever met an owner.
Oh, should I do that one first?
Sure.
So, an owner of a railroad. Yes. Now, it's kind of a strange story. So, when we were making a video, I think it was the first video of Roaring Camp. It was Shays in the Redwoods. That's what the video is called. And when we were making that video, I was dealing mostly with the general manager of the railroads themselves, and his name is John Bush. He doesn't work at Roaring Camp anymore. He works at the Cumbres and Toltec as I think he's their chairman or president of the Cumbres and Toltec. And I haven't talked to him in a long time. I'd really like to get back in touch with him. And since I've been talking to Stothy Pappas about the Chicken going to Placerville and Sacramento Valley, I feel like it's a good excuse to try to get back in touch with John, because they both work at the Cumbres and Toltec. But anyway, so back to the story. As one day because they knew what we were doing, and because we were doing it with their blessing, I was able to, or I should say we were able to drive up on their grounds. And because they have little service roads. And if you don't know, Roaring Camp is sort of a recreation of an 1880s logging camp. That's what it's supposed to be. So they have like a little vintage town, you know, with old looking buildings and a dirt road, and you know where the depot is, where you go to buy your tickets and all that, and just, you know, the general store, which is their gift shop. Well, behind all that there are service roads, and we had parked the vehicle we were using on one of those service roads, and a lady was out there with a little dog, and she came over and said, you know, you really shouldn't be parked here because this is sort of part of the town, and we like to try to keep this as old-fashioned as possible. So a modern car probably should not be parked here while we're open. And I didn't know it at the time, but I was talking to Georgiana Clark, also known as Georgie, because I had not been introduced to her formally at that time. So I didn't know who she was. I figured it out later that that's who that was, and she owned it at the time. She since has died, so her daughter now runs the place, Milani. And I would have met her last, when was it? Our friend Charlie, who was on the Fern Creek and Western Live Steam Up, was getting married at Roaring Camp. And I was going to go, but something happened and we weren't able to go. I think it was in January. We weren't able to go, and I was going to meet Milani there. So I would have met the current owner. That's the only one I can think of right offhand that I've met who was the owner of a railroad. And it's a heritage railroad, so, you know, I think that answers the question. So yeah, I have met an owner.
I'm getting back to... All right. So Brandon wanted to know, what are some of your personal short-term within the next year goals for this channel, and like housekeeping or reorganization of the playlist or additional sponsors, new projects.
Oh.
Which kind of ties in with Sparky then later asked, you were starting to travel a bit more for the channel before the show stopper. What trips do you really want to get to once this is over? So that might go together.
Okay, well, I'll try to remember all that because it's a lot for me.
Well, what are your
it's
goals,
it's a lot for me. Okay, hold on. Okay, so the goals right now are sort of... See, I know what you're doing, Brandon. You're trying to make me reveal what I showed you yesterday, but it's not going to happen. So it's not going to happen yet. We're going to do something to make that an announcement. So the goals are kind of... I can't make legitimate goals because the virus is affecting that. If I had done what I intended to do this year, there would have been a fair amount of travel, which will tie into Sparky's question. The one trip that I really wanted to do this year was to Strasbourg, but that didn't happen. Sparky does what we call the YouTube meetup or meet and greet or something like that we weren't able to do because of the virus. So that was going to be at Strasbourg in Pennsylvania, and my friend Gary, you know, Goofy Gary from Chasing Trains, he and I were going to go on an epic trip to Pennsylvania where we would have been there for an entire week, and I would have crossed off one of the big boys off my list that I don't really have, but Michelle Kempema, who also was on Chasing Trains, you know her from other places too, probably. But Michelle told me that I had to create a big boy list because I got to see, I think, 3 or 4 big boys now. And once you've seen a few, you have to make a list, she says. And then you have to check them off. So you have to take trips intentionally to check off big boys off your list. And there's one out at, I think it's at Steamtown. I think that's what it's called. Steamtown or Railtown. I don't remember. It's one of the railroad parks in Pennsylvania. They have one of the big boys there. So I would have checked that off my list. There are some sort of landmark places in Pennsylvania. Horseshoe Curve comes to mind that we would have checked off the list, done some video. I'm sure we would have made a Chasing Trains video there. So I'm sorry, it's not really a clear answer, Brandon, about what the goals are, because the only goal that I have right now is to create enough content to fill a schedule where I can put out a video every week. That's my main concern right now. That's why I'm looking at doing the weathering of these N-scale cars here. That's why I'm looking at putting out interviews and virtual hangouts from the train crew. One of the cool things.
Some layouts that you really want to get.
Yes,
to,
I was getting to that. I do have some layouts that I want to do layout tours of. One of those layout tours is the Colorado Model Railroad Museum. I took, when we were in Colorado in October last year, I took a bunch of video of their layout. And I think I have enough video and enough information that I can piece together a layout tour of that video. It's a layout tour of that layout, I should say. I think I said video. It's a magnificent layout. I mean, it is really, really big and very impressive. Just the trestles alone on that layout are impressive enough to want to go see it. It has some really high places that require these dramatic trestles, and they look to be, scratch built trestles. They're not like, I don't think they were kits. I don't think anyone makes kits that big. Now, I'm sure they used the jigs or whatever to create the structure and all that, but they're just really impressive. So I want to finish that layout tour, but I'm kind of stuck because when we did the layout tour, I was introduced to a really great guy, Carl had a stroke, a very severe stroke at one time, and he has trouble recalling words and concepts. So we spent basically a whole day filming with Carl, and I went back and found out that I don't think we had enough information in the narration that Carl was able to provide. So I have their map that has all the information of the various areas that we covered, that we took video of, and I have the project in my editor all put together, but there's not enough information to fill out the time that it takes. So I'm thinking about either writing a script or using their information on their map as the script and asking my friend Curtis to do the narration for it. Because you may not realize this, I realize that pretty much every video that we've done, I did the narration on. Well, now it's not because I like doing narration. It's not because I think I have some great voice. Contrarily, I think I have a terrible voice for narration. So, but it was expedient. If you can't afford to hire someone, or if you don't know someone that has an appropriate voice for narration, you do what you have to do to make it work. And that's why I've narrated everything. So, but I know enough people now. I can think of 2 people right away who would make great narrators. One of them is Curtis. Curtis Hill is Kevin's dad, and he's actually appeared on Chasing Trains as well. There's a Chasing Trains video that we made sort of by accident. A couple of years ago, we went to a garden scale swap meet out in Pleasanton, and on our way back, we went and phoned the Niles Canyon Railway's beer train. That's what they called it. It's some beer tasting train that they do every once in a while when there's no virus. And so while we were out there, I just started recording with my phone. I'm like, if we're going to be chasing trains, I'm making a video about it. And Curtis was in that video. And he has a great voice. It's just, he was the sheriff in San Benito County, so he had to do a lot of public speaking. And so it's a very developed public speaking voice. And then Seth Newman has a wonderful voice. It's a deep voice that's just pleasant. Now, I have never asked Seth to narrate anything, but if I wanted something narrated that I thought he would do a really good job with, which is probably anything, I might think about asking him. Now, how the hell did I get on narration?
I don't know, but you were supposed to be talking about goals and travel.
Oh, I was talking about how I want to do the video about the Colorado Model Railroad Museum, but I don't want to narrate it. So I've been kind of hesitant to finish that one. With the virus, you know, we're not supposed to be going and seeing people that we don't live with and doing things unless it's outside. And if I were to need to record Curtis, I mean, assuming he agreed to do it, I don't imagine he wouldn't be happy to do that. But if I were to go and record Curtis doing the narration, that means we would have to be in the same place in an enclosed place. And that's not something that we should be doing right now because of the virus. That's what I was getting at. So the virus has really thrown a huge wrench into everything. So the only thing I will say to Brandon's question, which I think is a really great question, by the way, Brandon, and thanks for asking it. Something else that I would like to do, if we could travel, is to go and see you, because we talked about going to Georgia and doing some rail fanning out there. I think that would be a gas. That would be a really fun thing to do. So, but you know what? What are you going to do? We got the virus to deal with, and I really keep thinking until there's some vaccine or sort of permanent solution to that, I don't know that we're going to be able to safely do many of the things that make what I do here possible. So, I don't know. Does that answer the question? I don't remember what other pieces of the question there were.
Yeah, no, that's fine.
Does it?
John Dyson says your train derailed. When
Yeah.
Track.
Yeah,
and
my
Sparky says one track mind, many branch lines to take. John needs a turntable to keep the subject in front of him.
yeah. I need. Believe me, I need something. I need some coffee. I quit drinking coffee, and everything's harder now.
Hey, Sparky stickered you a coffee mug, coffee cup.
Sparky sticker. Is
Yeah,
that
you know,
is
you
the
do
sticker
stickers,
the like $2 or something?
Yeah.
Oh, well, thank you, Sparky. I really appreciate that. And Dave, I feel like I should apologize to you because I'm always late, or, you know, to your show, and I don't intend to. I even have it in my calendar, but I get so wrapped up in other stuff that I'm doing that, or I'm out somewhere, you know, we're on a hike or something, you know, although that's a stupid excuse. We never hike that late in the day because it's hotter than hell here that late in the day. So I apologize for not being as present on your live streams as I would like to be, and probably as you would like for me to be. It's possible you don't even realize that I'm not as present as I would like to be there. But I really do try, and I greatly appreciate your support and your friendship. It really means a lot to me. So, and thanks for the sticker too, by the way. I think I said that. I think that's how I started this whole big long thing. I should do toasts at weddings, huh? It would be the longest toast ever. People would probably be already drinking before I finished, right? Let's raise a glass! And by the time I'm halfway through, people's arms are tired. You know, I can't hold it anymore. Oh, man. So is there plenty of talk going on in the chat at least? Yeah?
Chat. Paul's on here.
Uh-oh. Paul, that same thing goes for you. You don't do a live show, but I appreciate and value your friendship too. And Trevor and Eric and just everybody. You know, everyone that's been a friend over the past, you know, 10 or so years that was involved somehow with the YouTube channel, since I'm on the YouTube channel. It's just really great. And it's made my life so much better knowing all of you guys. So I really appreciate that. It's something that I think about fairly often. So just know that I think about you guys all the time. And that's something else that's on a short-term goal, since John Dyson is here. The other goal, and Jamie said he was going to try to log on from the airport because he's working today. But John, I told Jamie West, because he's been wanting to go out to the valley to do a Chasing Trains episode for a while now. I told him that you had your hip fixed and that you're going to have your other hip fixed. And when your other hip is up to 90 some odd percent and it's getting close to when you're going back to work, and as long as this stupid virus thing has resolved itself, that we're going to make a trip out there. That's also another goal of mine, is to go out and do Chasing Trains with John and Jamie out in the valley. because we can catch some really cool, fast-moving freight trains out there. That's not something we get around the Bay Area, at least not where I live. One of my other goals that I had for this year that won't be happening because of the virus is to get back out to Salt Lake City and hang out with Alvin. And there are, I think, 4 or maybe 5 guys I know from that area in Utah that want to do layout tours. So I'd like to get there. There's another guy from our regional NMRA who lives down near Santa Maria or San Luis Obispo or somewhere down there that wants us to do a layout tour of a layout that he manages. That can't happen until the virus has resolved itself. And then there's the I think it's called the Santa Susana Model Railroad Society or something like that. They have an old SP depot next to the main line in Simi Valley, which is where I was born. Not at the depot, but in Simi Valley. And they have a layout that we want to do a layout tour down there. You know, Miguel Chavez knows people that, you know, it's just, there's all kinds of things that can happen, but only after the virus resolves itself. Another really cool thing that I would like to do, and I've been talking to my other friend Jason Hill, who you've also seen him on the channel. He did a weathering video. He did the building the Owl Mountain models, lumber loads kit last year. And we also did a Owl Mountain models sort of an evening with the manufacturer over at the Santa Clara Depot. He's very much involved with the La Mesa Model Railroad Club, which is the club that has the Tehachapi Pass or Mojave Subdivision HO scale layout in the San Diego Model Railroad Museum at Balboa Park down in San Diego there. And we've talked about the possibility of going back to the La Mesa Model Railroad Club and doing some kind of a video about the operations at that Model Railroad Club, because they do really hardcore 1950s prototype accurate, like if you mess up someone yells at you operations. And I think it would be kind of a cool glimpse into that sort of hardcore op session. Now, we've only talked about it and we don't have any of the details worked out, but my thought for a video like that would be to go when they're doing their op session, but have someone who knows what they're doing but isn't actually operating in the op session. And it would probably end up being Jason, because he's very, very knowledgeable about these things. But to have someone like that to explain, you know, to show an area where someone is doing something and say, you know, this is the yard master at XYZ yard. He also has a clerk who's working around the corner in the office that we'll look at in a minute, but his job duties are XYZ. And right now he's doing this with the whatever. You know what I'm saying? To explain exactly what's going on. Then it goes to the next station. This is the clerk for the yard. He's getting all the train orders ready, you know, whatever the jobs are. That way it could be explained for the viewers how it all fits together, because op sessions have become a really, really popular facet of the hobby. And I think that if one of the things that I think is sort of intimidating is that depending on the operating session, there can be a lot to know. And if you don't know stuff and you try to go to an operating session, you'll mess up. And nobody wants to mess up because you look stupid or you get embarrassed or whatever. So by showing people what operating sessions are and how they work, which is which is what I've been doing over the past year or so on Model Railroading 101. In case you didn't notice, it's been very focused on operations. And as a matter of fact, the episode that's coming out this month, I think it's next week. If it's not next week, it's the following week. It's the last Saturday of this month. That one is the last one that I have produced already. That's about timetable and train order and CTC, centralized traffic control. And that was an episode that we filmed last September, I believe, up at something called Op to Drop, which is something that our friends Steve Hayes and John Zock around Twain Hart, which is near Sonora, California, they do an operating session, or a series of operating sessions on their two layouts, because they're kind of out in the middle of nowhere. So it's hard for them to get included on, Bay Area operating events or Sacramento operating events, because they're kind of too far away. It's like a 2 or 3 hour drive from either place. So they do Op to Drop, or have done Op to Drop annually for a number of years. And, a whole bunch of people, like 8 or 10 people, 12, 20, whatever, would show up and do op sessions on those two layouts for over the course of a weekend. And they would fit in as many op sessions as they could. That's why it's called Op to Drop. You just operate, it's operate John's, then Steve's, then go back to John's, and then the next day do 3 more. And by the time you're done, you're ready to drop. That one's coming out, like I said, this coming weekend. That's the last MR 101 that I have in the schedule right now because of the virus. I'm working with some other people to maybe do a 101 about airbrushing. I think that would be a pretty good topic, because just like operating, if you don't know about airbrushes, it can seem intimidating. They're not cheap. You don't want to buy the wrong thing and then have wasted your money. That sucks. And you don't want to, it's what I was talking about earlier. The hardest part of any project is taking the first step. It's getting started. And I know, like for me, I have a air compressor. It has a regulated output. I know that's what you need for airbrushing, but I don't know much about airbrushing. So, it's funny. Some people learn better by reading. Some people learn better by doing. Some people learn better by teaching others. Some people learn better by watching TV. I learn best by making a video about it, because the people that I know that volunteer to make videos about stuff know what the hell they're talking about. So they're pretty legit experts. And I learn a lot from making videos about stuff. So if I can make a video about airbrushing, I'll probably end up buying an airbrush, and that will take my weathering to a different place. So it's just a matter of learning this stuff, and you can't do it all at once. So the idea about the operating sessions Model Railroading 101 series was to do just that. Give people the inspiration to get started on something that they haven't tried before. So
Sparky just asked everyone who liked your filming from the tower, and quite a few people said they liked it. So that would be something people might like to see and do while sheltering in place or whatever.
Oh, right. Actually, I probably can do that. I can probably go to the tower with my equipment here and do, hanging out at the tower. However, and we're going to go back to the beginning of this show, Caltrain is not running a lot of trains, and most of the action you get train-wise at the tower is Caltrain. So besides Caltrain, Amtrak California, not running much. ACE, which comes from Stockton all the way to San Jose, under normal circumstances, 4 times each direction every day. I don't even think they're running right now. Or if they are, they're not running much. So while I could go down to the tower and do a show, I'm not sure how many trains we would see. It would be fun. And if we weren't sheltering in place, I probably would have done that by now. We have done it, right? We did live things from the tower with Dave and other times too. So, but that would be something good to do, and that's something that I would have done this year almost certainly, to do a live show from the tower. shoot, this show might have ended up from the tower, or a show like this one have ended up from the tower. Honestly, this show would have ended up being one of our panel discussion shows. Remember, that's why I'm doing shelter in place like this, because the panel discussions we're not able to do because of the virus.
Crew lounge.
What was I calling it?
Panel discussion.
Wait, right. TSG Live Crew Lounge panel discussion. That's what I'm talking about. So anyway, so does anybody else have any other questions that you want me to talk about? Because I'm getting hoarse and I just ran out of water here a minute ago.
Joey's on here.
Joey. Oh, since Joey's here.
Looking forward to another woodworking project on his video.
Yeah, since Joey's on here, I want to point that out. Do you guys see Joey, Buczek, in the chat? Copy that name and type it into your YouTube when we're done here. Because Joey, Buczek is how he said to pronounce his last name. He's a train crew member. And thank you very much, Joey. Really appreciate that. And I'm really glad that we've been able to meet and talk in our TSG virtual hangouts for Patreon members. He is a very talented woodworker and a really creative guy. And he has a channel where he shows you how to make stuff and how to do stuff and shows you models that he's bought.
He's building a layout.
He's building a layout. And he's building a little switching layout right now, HO scale. And moreover and more impressively, at least to me, the video quality on his channel is really good. So that's one channel.
Well shot and edited.
It's what?
Well shot and edited.
It's well shot and edited. You can hear everything and you can see everything. Now, I don't know, Joey, what you're using for lights for your videos, or if it's just the lights that are in your workspace there. But your videos look really good. And I suggested, well, that's why I suggested what I did to you about maybe collaborating in some way. So I would say, though, to definitely go look at Joey's channel, because he's making really good videos and good quality videos too. And I think, I'm not sure, but I think I met Joey through Sparky 107's live stream that he does every Wednesday that I mentioned earlier, which is another one that's worth looking at. Dave has a lot of fun, and he does a live stream, well, most weeks. I'm going to tell you something funny, Dave, if he's still here. A couple weeks ago, you took the week off, and I was on time to that one. I'm not kidding. I logged on and everything, and then I saw that there was a video from you that was posted earlier saying that you weren't going to be doing it that night. And I was like, oh, that figures. The one time I remembered, right? But what I was going to say about Dave's live streams is that he has a lot of fun, and you can tell. And he doesn't take himself too seriously. Like he puts on these goofy wigs, which is probably the highlight of the day for me. We did that when he was out here, and we did a live show from the tower that we were just talking about a minute ago. And we were putting on wigs when people were doing stuff, or I think. Well, on his show, it's if someone does a super chat or does a sticker or whatever, he'll put the wig on and embarrass himself to reward people. And you should see the comments. Like, oh, put the wig on and dance. People are giving him all kinds of crap, and we're just having a real fun time laughing the whole time. I think that's where I met Joey. But Dave's stream is cool because it gives people a really great place to just hang out in the chat room. And I think it's more about that community than anything. But at the same time, Dave does things like he'll show you how to make a tree, or he'll show you how to make a hill, or how to do static grass. Or one of my favorite shows of his that he did was making a static grass applicator out of an electric fly swatter, which I didn't even know electric fly swatters even existed before I saw that show. So he does this stuff that's just creative and fun. And that's another channel I would always recommend for people to take a look at, because, besides being a friend and being a really great guy, he does something good for the hobby too, which is giving people a place to socialize and and learn stuff and see that it's not hard to do these things. You just have to do it. You just have to take that first step and start the project. So, right, Dave? Is he still here? Is he still there?
He's happy to you to wear a wig.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I wasn't gonna do it, but like I said before, I don't really.
Sparky, you did.
I did it for Dave, right? I did it just for you, buddy. No, I mean, it has. I don't take myself so seriously that it's like, no, I'm not going to do that. It's like I'm just having fun. One of the things that I've always maintained and still do is that I like to laugh and make people laugh. That's one of the great things. And the other thing that I've realized about myself in doing the channel for over the past 10 or 10 years, whatever it's been. I think I started the channel in 2007, so it's like 13 years. But more recently, right? Since about 2013, when I got more serious about the YouTube channel, I've noticed or realized about myself that I get a lot of satisfaction in bringing joy to other people. And I think that if I were to distill down what this YouTube channel and what the videos that I've made over the years, what they really mean to me, that's what they really mean to me. It's getting satisfaction from bringing joy to other people. So if I go to, Nevada Northern and cover their number 40 or, all their operations there, and if I happen to do a cab ride, but I get to show you the cab ride, to show you the inside of the cab, and to show you the guy shoveling the coal into the firebox and how all that stuff works, that's what gives me the thrill. It's not the cab ride. It's the fact that I'm able to share that with everybody else. So that's what motivates me, and it's really a lot of fun. I mean, besides the fact that I also like to make videos, that's another thing. If you were, it's funny to think about this, but there's another channel that I don't usually talk about on this channel called TSG Channel 2. And that's my other channel where I do stuff that's not train related. So if I played a game on the Xbox and thought it was cool, I may have done a game review. I may, do a video that's a day trip video about a local park or an attraction in my area that I think is cool that people should go look at if they're in the area or if they visit the area. I've done videos that on Channel 2, I think my favorite videos are the ones that I refer to as naturescapes. That's where I take a camera and do slow motion video of little nature scenes. Now, I know some of the people that watch this channel watch that channel too because they comment on the videos, and it's greatly appreciated too that people do that. But those are also videos that I do for the same reason, because if I can share a park or a tourist attraction or something that I thought was cool, one of my favorite day trips videos on the TSG Channel 2 was when I went and hung out with Curtis Hill. I was talking about earlier, the guy that I was talking about maybe doing narration. He knows stuff about San Benito County because he's lived there his whole life, and like I said, he was the sheriff there too. So I went and hung out with him and Kevin for the day, looking at what's called seismic creep sites. And it's not creep, like someone that's a weirdo. Creep as in when seismic creep is when you're on an active fault, earthquake stuff. When you're on an active fault line, it always moves. And there are thousands of tiny earthquakes that most go unnoticed because they're too small. But over the course of 10 years or 20 years, you may find a sidewalk that is disjointed because it's on the fault line. So we did a video that's seismic creep sites in San Benito County. And that's something that San Benito County, actually Hollister in particular, is known for. is the seismic activity, because it's right on the San Andreas Fault. And I learned a lot that day. I didn't know all that stuff. And he tells some great stories about seismic creep sites. So you can go look at that on Channel 2. But I really enjoy sharing that stuff because it's something that I learn from. It's something that I figure other people also learn something from. And it's something that if you didn't know about it and it gives you something to go do with your family that day that's memorable, then great, you know. Same thing with the Placerville and Sacramento Valley Railroad that we went out to visit a couple of years ago. For the first time, it was about 2.5 years ago, and did a day trip video about that too. And you know what? Got a cab ride there too. It wasn't a steam cab, but it didn't matter. You know, so it's a real adventure when you think about it, and it's a lot of fun, and it's pretty satisfying to be able to bring those things to the public, not in the context of, haha, look what I did and you didn't get to do, but in the context of, hey, here's something really cool that I'd like to share with you, because maybe it's something you haven't seen before, or maybe it's something you can go do. So I don't know how I got onto this, but that happens a lot, doesn't it? I start talking about something and it leads to something else. That's why I had to use my notes when I was giving you that information about the one-sided story that was told by somebody recently.
Hey, Tom McAdams wants to know if people can share their channels.
Oh yeah, sure, by all means.
We've talked about Dave's and Joey's.
Absolutely. As a matter of fact, so usually when I do something like this, I don't like people sharing channels during the show, okay? Because it's not really relevant to the show. But right now, if you want to, feel free. If you have a YouTube channel, you want to share it, put it on the chat right now and tell everybody to come look. I know that there are a lot of really good channels out there, and I don't have time to find them all and view them all. I barely have time to get stuff done that I need to do here to make this channel go. But I know that there are some very, very good channels out there. Joey's was such a really great surprise, really. It was a very pleasant and great surprise to find someone who's well-spoken. The video looks good, and he's doing really cool projects and has a way of explaining stuff that is just almost inspirational. I told Joey that one time when I talked to him fairly recently. It may have been before or after one of our TSG virtual crew hangouts, or TSG train crew virtual hangouts, that he did the video about the beer flight. I didn't even know what a beer flight is. It's a little tray where you put beer cups.
It's like beer samples.
Yeah, it's beer samples, right? Little beer sample cups.
Sparky wants to know if you have share links on.
I don't know what share links is.
Okay. Well,
so
he's
I
gonna
probably
get busy for a few minutes here.
Yeah, I probably don't have share links on, whatever that is. Oh, in the chat.
Yes.
I don't know if that's on. It might be turned off because I purposely don't. So, oh, right. I was explaining that. I got lost the track again. Let me finish saying what I was telling you about Joey first. I was telling Joey that watching him make the beer flight actually inspired me. Like, I want to go out and get woodworking tools now and make wood stuff. I won't because I can't really afford to buy a bunch of woodworking tools. But his video was very inspirational to me. That's what I was going to say. And yes, it's intended as a compliment. And no, it's not just an ass kissing or blowing smoke. I really mean that. The channel looks great. You explain stuff. You're a positive guy. I really think that your channel deserves a lot.
Edited well.
It's edited well. I really think that your channel deserves a lot of attention. So keep doing what you're doing, Joey. It's really good content. And if you ever want to do something on this channel, even if it's just to try to get more exposure for your own channel, I am totally okay with that, because I've seen the quality, and I wouldn't hesitate to put it on my channel, and that's meant as the highest compliment. So, what I was gonna say though was, I probably have share links turned off because I've seen it far too often where people will just pop onto a live stream like this and put their link on there and then take off. Like, they're not even interested. They're just trying to publicize their own crap, basically on the back of my work. And that's not cool. I don't want someone, like the same thing happens in the comments section where people are like,
it's fine. Us moderators can just approve their posts.
Yeah, the moderators will approve any links right now. And just make sure, if you're sharing a porn link, just make sure it's good porn. Yeah, sorry, that's my humor for today. What I was going to say is I've seen it often in the comment sections where someone will say, oh, great video, please subscribe to my channel. Like, you didn't even watch the video.
And then they're gone.
Yeah, and then, you didn't even watch the video. And I know you didn't even watch the video. And frankly, it's funny because YouTube filters all that stuff out. And when creators go to their YouTube channel, they can see stuff that's been held for review. That's the terminology in YouTube's infrastructure, is held for review, comments held for review. So if your comment is held for review and I look at it and it's some site or trying to self-promote, it never gets onto this comment section anyway. And I think of the chat window kind of the same way, because if you have an established channel or a somewhat established channel and people are just popping on to say, oh, go look at my thing, and they leave, that's really cheap, isn't it? I mean, I would never do that. I mean, maybe it's just me, but I just don't. Why would I try to piggyback off someone's work, someone's hard work, to try to get some cheap exposure? It's just whatever. Anyway, I think I mentioned it on the last Shelter in Place show, like the one that we're doing here now, that I want, or maybe it was on the podcast, that I want to figure out a way to share on the monthly podcast, to share other people's channels that are good. So, for example, if you have a good YouTube channel that does, railroad videography, and you got some really cool, run by or something like that, I would like to be able to have a way for people who do that to send me their video and their YouTube channel so that I can play it during the podcast with their YouTube channel name on the video as it plays. But I decided, or I shouldn't say I decided, I'm in the process of figuring out how to do it so that I don't end up with people that are taking other people's videos and saying, oh no, this is my video, and come to my channel, where upon, someone would go to the video thinking it's going to be this other stuff, and it turns out to be something completely different or something not as good or whatever. And I was thinking to maybe open that up to patrons, because someone who signed up on Patreon at least has created an account with their real name that's sort of verifiable, so that it's not like, I stole Mike Armstrong's video of a run-by of some obscure steam engine that he went and traveled to for his channel, and I said it was mine to get exposure for my channel. If you're a stranger and you don't know who's sending you stuff, so if it's just strangers sending you stuff, there's no way to verify who they are. But if they're signed up as a patron, they've given their information to somebody and able, to be able to do that. So I don't know. This is kind of me thinking out loud about ways to do that. But since we have 60 people watching or so, I'll ask you guys, because you're the people I think that I'm most interested in hearing feedback from, because you care enough to watch something like this. What were you going to say? Something?
No.
Do you think that having a little, 5-minute segment of other people's YouTube channels on the podcast would be a worthwhile endeavor? I'm just asking, because I don't have the time to go and seek these things out. I can't watch 10 hours of YouTube to find the channels that I would be like, oh, hey, everybody, you should watch this because I like it. I don't have time to do that. But if someone brings one to me, or brings their own to me, and it's like, hey, this is really good, I want to share this, I'd like to, because it promotes the community, really, and I think makes it easier for people that are doing good work to grow their channel. You know, I mean, to be really honest, I looked at Joey's because I was curious, because he was a train crew member and wanted to see what he was doing. That's why it was such a pleasant surprise to see how good it was. It's like, wow. I mean, I don't know that if he hadn't been signed up, or if I hadn't seen him other places, that I would have done that. It may have been actually when I was watching one of Sparky 107's live shows, and he was making comments about a video he was working on or something like that, that I'm just like, oh, I think I'll go look just to see what it is or if it's any good. And it was. So.
Yeah, people are saying they think it helps people out.
Yeah, I think it helps.
Share, more train stuff.
Yeah, I think it helps people out too. And I'm all, look, if I can help somebody, and especially if it doesn't cost anything, why not, right? That's actually something that this person has told me in the past. If you can help someone, why not help them? Do you know who that was?
Pardon me?
Do you know who said that? If you can help someone, why not help someone?
Grandpa Rails said that helps people out. So.
Yeah, and he's right, John. That's John Dilly. You're right, John. That helps people out. What I was trying to allude to is that the person on the screen right now is the one who told me that. If you can help someone, and especially if it doesn't cost you anything, why not help someone? See? That's why I like her. Well, there are other reasons too, but that's one of them. Some people just have a good heart, and I try hard to be like that as much as possible. And that's, I'm not going to go on about it, but I'm going to make one comment here. But that's one of the things that made what happened with Dan so hard, because I always try to be fair and do the right thing with everybody every time. Period. That's just who I am. That's just who I have always been. So having that kind of stuff, and that's also why I felt compelled to say something about it, because if you only took what that guy said, it paints me out to be some kind of a crazy, insane monster, and it's just not true. So
Gary says he's beyond help. Gary's here.
Gary's beyond help? Gary is beyond help.
Check out Gary's channel.
Yeah, Goofy Gary's another one, right? Gary Perazzo. Perazzo. If you just search for Goofy Gary on YouTube, you will find his channel. He does some really cool video. And ever since he got his drone, he's even doing a lot of cool drone videos. Although, I mean, not as many lately, because he, like us, or like we are, is taking the virus pretty seriously. I know people that have had the thing, and it's no laughing matter, and it's not something to balk at, because if you are, even if you're not one of the people who is severely affected by it, you could easily give it to someone who is affected by it that you actually care about. So, it's like people have been asking me, wow, why aren't you going out and doing stuff? And the answer to the question is right here. That's the answer to the question. Because if I go out and get the COVID thing, it'll suck. I'm sure of that, because like I said, I know people who have had it and have recovered from it, and they said it's horrible and it's one of the worst things. And when you think you're getting over it, it comes back, and that happens over and over again. It's like it's playing with you. I'm sure I would survive, right? But I'm not sure that everybody in my household would. So I got to be careful. So that's why I'm taking it so seriously. Kind of have to. Anyway, I'm I'm out of stuff to say. Let me go back through my notes and make sure I didn't miss anything. And then we'll...
People are sharing. Sparky did a lot of
Cool.
work of looking up everybody's YouTube channels and sharing them. So
Cool.
he did a lot of work. Thank you very much, Sparky.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Dave, for your help.
And we'll try and figure out how to make that not a problem next time.
Oh, right. Yeah. That's something that I'll have to turn off, and then I'll have to remember to turn it back on, right? Because sharing links generally is not something that I want to have people doing unless it's intentionally and very specifically stated to do so. So thanks, Dave, for the help. I really appreciate it. And since I'm thanking Dave, I want to thank all the moderators. This is one thing that, I always forget, or I feel like I always forget, but I want to thank all the moderators. Everybody with a little wrench next to their name in the chat there are moderators, and they help things stay on track in the chat window. So huge thanks to everybody there. So I talked about the interviews. I talked about the mask, the Chasing Trains cloth mask for limiting your, not limiting your exposure, but limiting the possibility for someone else to be exposed from you of the virus. I talked about the like button. So yeah, please, if you can, try to remember to hit that like button, because it does help the channel a lot. Talked about Dan's thing. Talked about Instagram. Oh yeah, so don't forget Instagram this Tuesday at 6. If you're on Instagram, please be sure to join me and Jamie. I don't know what the questions. I don't know how many people will show up. We have a few hundred, or 600 or 700 people that are following on Instagram, so it'll probably be a smaller gathering of I'm guessing. But you never know. If everybody here shows up, it'll be just as big. Plus whoever on Instagram who's not on YouTube will also show up. That's Tuesday at 6 p.m. Pacific. And I also mentioned earlier, I'll mention it one more time and then I'll go, about if you have any photos of trains that you took yourself that are your photos that you would like for me to share on the podcast that's coming up on August 1st, please send those to me at podcast@tsgmultimedia.com. And if I get too many, I won't be able to use all of them, but I'll use as many as I can. And if I have enough that I can't use them all this time, I'll probably use them next time. So it's not, it'll be an ongoing thing. I already have some that I'm going to be including this time. So I think that's it. If there are no other questions, we'll go to Top Secret one more time. Do you see anything in there?
That sounds like a lot of people are heading from this stream over to Ray Bogles.
Oh, okay.
He's setting up for.
Is it Ray or Ron?
Ray.
Ray. Okay. Well, good. Then I'm gonna go and let everybody head over to the other stream probably at 6. It's probably starting right now. So thank you all for watching, and I'm gonna let this run for another 20 or so seconds so that you can say goodbye to each other, and we're done. So thank you for watching. I'll see you soon. Bye.